Why is it so hard for young people to couple now?
Wow, that's a tough one. So I think it's a variety of things, even basic, so simple, stupid stuff. Or men are going more conservative, women are going a little more progressive. When I was your age and I went on a date, I could not tell you of all the women I dated in my 20s and early 30s, I couldn't for the life of me remember what their politics were. Now, the politicization of everything, within a minute, everyone's like, I'm blue or I'm red or this. And with political viewpoints diverging based on gender, it's yet another reason why men and women cross each other off their list. So it's one more reason not to, people are becoming so tribal. It's not, no, I can't date a Trumper. A Trumper's like, I can't date some weirdo who votes for Harris, whatever it is. Another reason they don't get together. The bigger issues are, I think, really more specific to men, and that is 1 out of 3 men under the age of 25, or 1 out of 2 men will live with their parents. 1 out of 5 men at the age of 30 is still living with their parents. Fewer and fewer of them are going to college. And the conversation we don't want to have, because it sounds sexist, is that women made socioeconomically horizontally and up, men horizontally and down. So 3/4 of women say economic viability is key in a mate, only a quarter of men. Basically, men kind of look for sex, women look for security. And men have a much more porous filter. Men are much less choosy. And so on a dating app where now 2/3 of people are meeting at your age, a guy has to swipe right 200 times to get a match, and then 4 of the 5 coffees he sets up will ghost him. So he has to match, or he has to swipe right 1,000 times to get one coffee. That's the man of kind of average attractiveness. 0 to 100, he's at a 50. So he gets validation that in the mating market on dating apps, he has no value, which makes him a bit depressed. At the top end, the top guys, 50 women on Tinder, 50 men, 4 of the men will get all of the interest of 46 of the women. So all the women kind of want the same guy. And so those guys, quite frankly, can engage in Porsche polygamy. And that is, they have a date every night. They have no incentive to establish a long-term relationship. It's great to be them. But the bottom 46 of those men are nearly shut out of the market. In addition, if you speak to couples who've been married longer than 20 or 30 years, in 3/4 of the cases, one person was much more interested in the other in the beginning. And usually it was the guy that was more interested. Women have a much finer filter because the downside of pregnancy or sex is much greater than it is for men. But what happens is, over time, is the man was able to demonstrate excellence. I liked the way he smelled. I liked his hands. I liked how kind he was to his mother. I saw him present at work, and I was just so impressed by him. He made me laugh. Where does a man who's not going into work in an era of remote work, in online dating, people aren't going out as much, people your age aren't drinking as much, they're not going to bars, they're not going to church as much, where do men demonstrate excellence? Well, for that matter, where do young people even meet? So fewer third places where they meet, less alcohol, which quite frankly I think lubricates the mating process. I think it's bad that young people aren't drinking as much, and I've gotten shit for saying that, but Peter Attia and Andrew Huberman see drunkenness. I see togetherness. And I'm not suggesting everyone drink, but I am suggesting that there's a certain amount of bonding in certain situations that are key to the kind of growth process or mating process. And I just see those environments and those venues drying up. And there's more and more reasons why people are crossing each other off their list. In addition, women are dating older. 1 in 3 men has a girlfriend under the age of 30. 2 in 3 women under the age of 30 has a boyfriend because they're dating older, because they want more economically and emotionally viable men. So it all leads to the same place, more and more loneliness. Young men feel isolated, sequestered from society. The deepest pocketed people and companies in the world want to convince them they can have a reasonable facsimile of life in their basement. You don't need friends. Go on Reddit or Discord. You don't need a job. Trade stocks or crypto on Robinhood or Coinbase. You don't need to go through the humiliation and effort of trying to find going to a bar or a gym or meeting someone at work or at church. Just go on YouPorn. And so I almost feel as if we're developing into a subspecies of young men who are totally isolated, totally sequestered, And while loneliness amongst women isn't any less of a problem, it's less dangerous because women are less inclined to harm themselves or harm others. And they also do a better job of maintaining social connectivity or social capital without a romantic relationship. They have friends. They usually do well at work. They pour their energy into work. When a young man doesn't have the guardrails of a romantic relationship, he kind of starts a path to becoming just a really shitty citizen. Whether it's not showering or being more prone to conspiracy theory or starting to believe that it's a woman's fault, much more prone to misogynistic content. They just go down a rabbit hole. And unfortunately, at a certain point, I don't want to say they don't become savable, but they become just unattractive to the labor and the mating markets. And they don't get any momentum in their 20s. They lose confidence. And they just sort of become almost unsavable, if you will. And we're producing way too many of those men.
Yeah, I totally agree. And I've seen a lot of videos of women saying what they desire in a partner. And it's like 6'2", makes over $100,000 a year. And it's these boxes that maybe only 0.5% of the population checks.
Yeah.
And I guess that means that 0.5% of the population is getting tons of women. And so like, why would they ever settle down? Because they have so much, they're exactly at a buffet.
Right. That's exactly right.
It's a little bit unrealistic, the standards. One thing I'm concerned about, I think it's relevant to this conversation, is AI girlfriends. I think these guys that get lost in the internet, I think AI girlfriends are right around the corner. What do you think about that?
Oh, they're here, and they're pretty sophisticated. And it's like three-dimensional porn. There's projections that the sex doll industry, if current movie theater trends if box office receipts keep going down, they think that in 5 to 10 years, the business of selling sex dolls is going to be bigger than the motion picture business. Men have just decided to engage with an algorithm and an AI girlfriend. The number of searches for AI girlfriend has exploded. And men are basically deciding to have relationships with it's kind of the movie Her come to life with Joaquin Phoenix. You have this group of men that's just sort of peeling off from society and giving up. And you can't tell women to lower their standards. That's not helpful, and it's not going to work. But where does a man demonstrate excellence, or where do we even get them together? I'm a big fan, just moving to solutions, I'm a big fan of national service. And that is giving young people a chance to meet people from different economic backgrounds, different ethnicities, different sexual orientation, and spend a lot of time together. And I work with a lot of Israeli companies. You find a lot of co-founders met in the IDF, a lot of friends, and a lot of mates. I was just in Israel, and I went to the Nova Nova Festival Memorial, and I had a chance to meet with about a battalion or a squadron, I don't know what the term is, of IDF. And they're all these young, fit men and women. And you just got to think they're just making a ton of friends. There's probably a lot of dating going on there. And they're serving in the agency of something bigger than themselves. And they're learning discipline. They're learning community. They're learning responsibility. I mean, these kids are up at 7 a.m, running, working out, loading and cleaning their gun, learning a skill. I think national service would be, that's something I've really kind of leaned into. Also, some of the lowest levels of depression in Israel among young adults, and I think some of that is because of national service.